Peace. What's going on, people? So I wanted to shoot this video. I got some good follow-up questions from the last video that I shot, and I'm glad people are sending emails about one of the most important things personally. Well, it shouldn't just be to me personally, it should be to everybody on this path, about getting results. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why we do this. This is why we're on this path, to find practical, methods and solutions to get things accomplished, to reach our goals, and again, to evolve, change, and transform our lives. That's why we do this. But again, real quick, just throughout the beginning of the videos, like I like to do in all the videos, I know some people have emailed about the event at the end of the month. I did get back to those that emailed in the last couple of days. Just been a little bit busy. That event, again, for those that might be watching this video and don't know about the event, it's posted in the community section of my YouTube page, the flyer. The event will be on Friday, January 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is the Ritual of PEP, the Adversary of Chaos and Darkness. If you are interested in attending that ritual, the email that's on the flyer and that you see in the description box of the videos, khnum19@gmail.com. You can hit me up to request an invite. All right. If you are interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, feel free to hit me up at the same email address. I do ask you to give me at least 2 days. It is actually very busy right now at the beginning of the year. A lot of people are using the concept of the yearly forecast spiritual consultation, which kind of maps out your year, things you can expect, etc. Those that have done it know how it works. It's a very good tool to push you in the right direction, to get you on the path to do the work that you need to do. Or if you just want a consultation in general for whatever you want to use it for, I mean, that's what a consultation is for. Or you can choose to do a spiritual reading, which is consulting, using a system of divination, consulting the spirits and the ancestors, and that's kind of, we just flow it with whatever comes through. All right. So if you're interested in any of the aforementioned things or online classes, we have one more session this Saturday. For this session, we will be starting up again at the end of March, late March. I will be getting that curriculum and information out to some new inquiries that inquired, in addition to the people that are already taken the classes. We will get that rolling. That will start at the end of March. We're going to take a break. As I said, I'm trying to do it 3, possibly 4 times a year. I'm going to lean more on 3 for time purposes. 3 is probably more reasonable and feasible to do without putting too much on the plate, in addition to everything else. But that information will be coming out very shortly. So look for that. And as I said in previous videos, I pretty much have it done. I have to just add a couple little finishing touches on it, and I will get that sent out. I'm just focused on finishing this last session. Got one more week, and then I'll have a little more free time to kind of work on that and finish it up. All right, so you can email me, same email address for all the aforementioned things, khnum19@gmail.com. And that email, if you forget, is in the description box. All right, so I wanted to title this video, "Do not be the jack of all trades, but be, don't be somebody who's a jack of all trades, master of nothing." That thought crossed my mind from some of the emails that you guys sent from the previous video about road clearing work, clearing paths, if you're not familiar, and if say maybe you're not on this path and you're stumbling across the video, it's a term we use on this path, self-mastery, left-hand path, black magic, work one does on themselves to clear their path. Now I like to pertain it to, when I say my paths, or I'm saying road clearing work, clearing your paths, what I'm referring to is spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and yes, as I've said many times before, do not leave out financially. Your goal as an adept, a black magician, is to be successful in those areas, to be well harmonized in all of those areas, not one more than the other, Because when that natural energy and harmony is flowing, that's when things in your life really start to change, take off, and you take it, quote unquote, as they say, to another level. Now, we all, at some shape, form, or fashion, and through various periods of time in our lives where we have some aspects of that, more the other, etc. We lack in other areas and stronger in some of those other areas. When I was talking about the Agatho demon on the last video, we also call that the divine aspects of ourself, right? You know, the Ka, the Ba, etc. All this is what makes up or gives you that, formula or combination, which is your Agatho demon, right? Or your personal demon, whatever you want to call it, your real self. Now, in the area of results, and I'm glad people saw that video and actually really, dissected it to the point where they wanted to apply it to themselves, engage themselves in how they getting results. To me, that's important because, bottom line, you could be, study, a whole bunch of shit, do a whole bunch of rituals, candle magic, meditations, visualization, and that stuff is needed. You could do all that stuff, but if you're not getting results, I've said this many times before, you need to ask yourself a question. Something's out of whack. Something's not right. If you're doing all this stuff and nothing's really happening, something's not right. So there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'm going to explain. But I'm going to go in a little bit more depth. One, part of the problem, there's conscious and unconscious forces at work here. What I mean by that, the mind is aware of some of these things and it's not. And sometimes it's feeding off of those unconscious forces or energy, which creates the, whether it's self-doubt, not fueling the intent, correctly, and which therefore obviously leads to not getting results. So what tends to happen is you got some people that are all over the place, right? That's what I call people that are jack of all trades, but they don't master shit. They know everything, they read this, they study that, they tap into this, which there's a double-edged sword to that. Let me explain. That's a good thing and a bad thing if you are able to handle it, facilitate it, and make it work for you. Some people don't have that ability, especially some people straight out the gate. So what do I mean by that? We all know people that dabble in every damn thing you can think of. I don't care if it's fluffy shit, light shit, dark shit, whatever you want to term it or describe it. You got people that are messing with, Buddhism. They're messing with Tantra. They're messing with Eastern and Asian philosophies. They're messing with, Aleister Crowley stuff. They're messing with, Luciferian stuff, vampire stuff. And that's great because I've done a video that you must be versatile. You must be very fluid. You must be able to adapt and take those systems and make them work for you. And that's a great thing. But sometimes the problem is people are not absorbing them. They're bouncing all over the place and nothing is getting accomplished, which leads to two things. Usually that person starts to get a little frustrated, and I'm not talking about just frustrated on the surface where they're aware of it. It's not registering in the mind. Then they start to become complacent. And let me explain. You get a lot of people that come on this path. And again, I see this all the time. And this is just a reality. I'm sure other people watching this video can relate to the same. I'm sure you guys have probably seen this in others. People who get on this path, and because they get into that frame of mind, they're all over the place, they can't really master shit or anything. So whether they're conscious of it or not, they start to get comfortable with a particular spiritual system on this path. And I've talked a little bit about this in the past. So because the other stuff may not be working or registering, the mind unconsciously needs to feel comfortable, and you're not aware of it. It needs to gravitate towards something to make you feel like you're in a comfort zone. So they'll pick one, maybe two particular spiritual systems and stay locked in that because it's really the only thing that they know. All right? It's the only thing that makes them feel comfortable. So they might pick Luciferianism or necromancy or whatever and stay locked in that. I'm going to talk about again that concept real quick and connect something here. So they'll stay in one or two systems and they slowly start to abandon the other stuff, and then they make justification for it. They'll give some personal justification for it. And look, that's fine. You're your own individual. You can choose to do whatever the fuck you want. But like I said, if you're only doing one or two things, or you're gravitating towards a particular spiritual system, you're not the master of anything but mastering that particular path. That's because when it's all said and done and you pull the layers of bullshit away, if the individual was dealing with themselves, she or he would have the ability to adapt. I said in the last video, in reference to getting results, you must be able, you got to have the ability. You can take from any of those spiritual systems and create a working and incorporate a multitude of systems if you know what you're doing. We got to stop getting in the mindset that we need to be exclusive to something in order to incorporate it in some shape, form, or fashion on our spiritual path. That's just not true. According to the mapped out, program system, because look, let's keep it real. Call it left-hand path or not, path to self-mastery. There's a lot of information out there that's structured, right? A lot of information out there that people get caught up in following the exact rules and regulations of. Let's not act like it doesn't exist in this circle. It does. It does if you allow it to, is what I'm saying. Now, I've always said this a million times about books. Yes, books are a great tool. We all need them to study. They all have pushed us in the right, direction to motivate us. Shit, as you know, I read everything I can get my hands on. But I also make sure I utilize it in my method, my shape, my form. I give it the methodology of how I want to use it. Adding from things, subtracting from things, taking. Again, I say use those things or those tools, books, as a blueprint, a guideline, a roadmap to what you're trying to accomplish. Now, to confirm what I was talking about, like that fluidity, right? Even if you look at, to apply this concept, I'm going to use, even when you see for the last couple of years, the rituals we do here pretty much on a monthly basis as a group, which is the group rituals, right? You don't see us doing the same shit every single month, right? You don't see, and I started to see, for those that still come around know, because we discussed this a lot, I started to see in the beginning when we were doing a lot of African spiritual stuff, people were showing up because they felt comfortable with it. And I talked about this before. As soon as we started going to the higher aspects of like Egyptian, quote unquote, Egyptian, Luciferian type of magic, people dropped off like flies on dog shit. Because I mentioned before, that is dealing with the pure mental aspect of your mind. That is the true science of individuals who have the ability to enforce their will and use their will and mind power. And again, those are in the sessions of classes. Last session was dealing with that, and the one we got coming up kind of ties that all in together. Why a lot of people fall off when it comes to this type of magic, right? And as I said before, understand the differences. There is a difference in how magic is applied, because that comes up a lot in emails, and I addressed that a little bit in the last video. Is all magic the same? And I say yes and no, because the concept of what the goal is when working magic, be it white magic or Wiccan type of earth magic, high magic, like the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucian Order, etc., or black magic, like we work on this path, they're applied differently. It isn't the same as far as the methodologies, how it is applied, and the way you might go about doing it, okay? Because there's different principles that govern it. And I'll say in a religious way, greater black magic removes all personal morals, dogmas, philosophies must be removed from the individual to be successful at it. It doesn't influence them in their work. Whereas I have seen through my experience, be it Wicca or white magic or high magic, I still see a lot of religious stuff engulfed in it. Like I mentioned on last video, the banishing ritual of the pentagram with using the four corners as the archangels. And a lot of these people will say that they're not religious, but there's a lot of religious overtones and concepts. So there is a difference in the magic. You must understand that. I don't care what anybody says. You'll have other people beg to differ, give you a different opinion, because I've gotten several emails over that over the last couple of years. Isn't all magic the same? Well, if that's what you want to think in your mind, that's fine. You can think whatever you want in your mind. Nobody can stop you from that. That's your right. That's your personal right. But when we remove, all the layers of bullshit, and you break it down for what it is, you will see it is not the same. You must understand that. It is not the same. And this is why you must be fluid. And as I said before, this path incorporates all of those elements of magic. We must understand that. It uses all of them, even some of the fluffy stuff. But we know where that core essence, or that power lies, as we've been talking about the last several weeks, primal chaos, etc., etc. So the issue that I'll see, and again, I'm glad to see people are now questioning and engaging their results. You will have individuals, again, there'll be the jack of all trades, but they don't master shit, or they get comfortable and they gravitate towards a specific spiritual system, because unconsciously, one, it goes to show you that there's a lot of work still to be done on the individual. Two, it also goes to show you that maybe this isn't for them and they just don't realize it, because you'll see them slowly and they're not conscious of it all the time go back into that kind of religious mentality, religious way of thinking. So the best way, here's some methods to simply overcome that stuff. And I always tell people, if you're on this path in the beginning, I know it's exciting, there's so much shit out there. It don't mean you can't read and study. But what I always suggest to, and this is a message more so to newer people on the path, what I always suggest to them is pick one, maybe two things, focus on that for a while till you get it down pat. It could be a particular spiritual system, a ritualistic type of work. Get that down packed smooth, where you feel it's free flowing, things are moving, you're getting results. Once you've got that flowing, then you could start to branch out and do other things. Now, what tends to start happening over time, it becomes second nature. And then you start to naturally get the ability, quote unquote, to multitask and do things, simultaneously. But let's be real, some people don't have that ability right out the gate. Now, there are some people who are just naturally gifted. They can do that. That's just a fact with anything in life. Just like you have some people that play sports, they're more naturally gifted than others. They go out there and they can dominate, play more successful than another individual. That's just called life. That happens. Some people are, DNA-wise and spiritual-wise, they're linked in. And they sometimes don't, have to put that tremendous effort. But those are your rare people. Those are people that are few and far in between. Some people like to confuse themselves for that. So you must be able to really know, one, if you want to say your limits, and you should never have any limits, but I'm saying when you first start out, you should know how much you should take on at a particular time without, overdoing it. Because again, I've said a million times in videos over the last several years, you gauge your success by your results. That's it. It's that simple. Fuck all this shit you think you know. Fuck all this shit how deep you might think you are because of what you studied. But if you're not getting results, that's how you need to go back and question yourself. So if you've been doing something for a long period of time and nothing's happening, you need to check that, because something's not right. You need to evaluate, what is it you're doing? Go over whatever your quote unquote routine is. Go over how you're carrying out your ritualistic work. Go over what it is you're studying, and most of all, go over how you're applying it on a daily basis. And something's not right. You will find the disconnect, because you have to be careful. You got a lot of the individuals. We can get caught up in our own hype, all of us. We can get caught up in our own hype. People, that might have all this knowledge, and they talk about it. I liken that, let me give you an example. I liken that to, we could all remember when we were younger. Well, shit, there's even still people like this today. Forget when we were just younger, but I'm going to use a time back then. I remember, as a young man back in them times, middle school, high school. You remember when we used to stand around in circles and there was always that one dude that talked about all the pussy he got? Right? Or there was the one girl that was known as a sexual freak, or she always acted sexual. What I found out, the people that talk about that all the time, and I'm going to use the sex analogy all the time, and you even see that today in adults, the people that everything is sex to them, sexual this, sex that, unfortunately, what they're unmasking is their personal sexual deficiencies. Because I found out the dude that talked about getting pussy all the time, he didn't get no pussy at all. You understand? He was the one, every time you gather in a circle, he talked about how much pussy he got and how many bitches were sweating him and how many. Usually that's a telltale sign, one, somebody that got sexual malfunctioning disorders. It could be for a multitude of things. It could be something happened to them when they were younger. We've talked about sexual abuse. That can be a factor for men and women. More so different for men. We've discussed that. It could also be the female who overcarries out, and I see with females it sometimes manifests different. They become too overly sexual, physical. For whatever reason, I've noticed it's a little different. The men, what they're talking about, they don't really, it's all bullshit. It's fluff, it's hype. But I find with the women, it tends to be they do become over-sexual. And it could be the same reasons. They were sexually abused. They don't know how to deal with it. Because with sexual abuse, again, I'm saying this from just knowing people that have been through it. And I've said before in past videos, you got one, I think they say it's like 1 out of every 4 person you meet has experienced in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, I myself haven't, so I'm not speaking from as if I have personal experience on it, but I do know a lot of females that have. And they all tell me the same thing. It's one of two things. Either you shut down completely sexual or you become over-sexed because you don't know how to deal with it. This can happen to the man too. And they don't deal with their sexual, it's a mental disorder. It's a fact. It's a reality. And they don't know how to deal with it. So usually that's the individual that everything is sexual to them. They talk about sex all the time. Sex this, sex that. You got to be careful of that because that's a red flag. Well, liken that to people also on this path. Let's keep it real. They study this, they know this, they master that. And I did a video a while back, and I said you got to get to a point where individual has to show and prove and demonstrate their power, quote unquote, as an adept, a black magician on this path to self-mastery. This is important to understand. We can't fall for the fucking Kool-Aid. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's real simple. Get results. Same thing with other people. You get emails all the time of people that have been scammed, taken for their money because they hire somebody to do ritualistic work. Look, I got, how many emails I get? I got an email recently from somebody, right? This is some funny ass shit. And it never fails. All right? And I'm not going to say the person's name. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Hold on. Yeah. This was 2 days ago. I get this all the time. People that have worked with other people who claim to be root workers or spiritualists, because they fall for the Kool-Aid. This person, had said to me in the email, they had a particular situation, they needed help work in a particular area. They went to an individual to get I guess a reading or a consultation or whatever they did, or you want to call it. And it was a bunch of mundane bullshit. The person told me in the email. I was highly disappointed. It was just a bunch of nonsensical. It sounded like a bunch of nonsensical rehearsed rhetoric. It didn't point the individual into any specific areas. Didn't give them anything specific that needed to be done or that they should be doing. So the person obviously spent money that they probably really didn't have and was kind of disappointed. And I've said you gotta be careful of this shit. Don't let nobody tell you they can make shit for you and send it to you in the mail, or don't let nobody tell you that they're gonna do an X amount or something for you and charge you a whole bunch of money to do it. That's you gotta be careful of that. And as I said before, and I always make this clear, when you're saying that, I have to be clear because, as you know, I offer the same type of services, but yet different. I don't do it in a way where I tell you you need an X amount of dollars to get something done and then I'm going to do it and send it to you or whatever. That's what most spiritualists do. No, I'm not doing that. I'm telling you how you're going to do it for yourself. We're going to discuss it. We're going to let what needs to come to the surface come to the surface, but guess who's going to do the work and handle the problem themselves? You. That's the difference. Why is that important? Because that prevents you from having to continuously depend on something or somebody outside of yourself. That's the whole point. That's the difference between that and somebody that's trying to hustle you via the internet or whatever. And I keep telling people, look, if you keep going back to these people and you keep getting taken advantage of, used and abused, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. You can't be mad. And unfortunately, I do know people that this has happened to them 2, 3, and 4 times. Because what that tells me, there's a sense of desperation there. And when certain people feed or sense that you're so desperate, they will take advantage of it. It's just like when you walk into a Botanica. It's just funny as hell. Because if I'm traveling out and about in another state, and I say there's one in the area, I'll go check it out. But it's funny when you walk in, they see a new face and they automatically think that you're a victim. And if you've been, you know what I'm talking about. And I won't say shit. I won't. First of all, they would be able to recognize energy to show you that they really don't. I don't say anything about what it is I do and do not know. I just like to kind of fall back and see how they're going to come at me. Well, they come at you like a vulture because they see dollar signs and they figure you're a victim. And they all come with the same bullshit. Oh, yeah, I see this around. You need to do this. Oh, you need to come before my product and get a reading. And then it's always the same bullshit. You need some type of cleansing, and I'm going to charge you a ridiculous amount of money to do some shit you can do for yourself. We got to be careful of this stuff because this is what distracts us. So I'm saying all this to say, because that's what I mean when I say stop being the jack of all trades and mastering nothing. You can't be all over the place, especially if you're not getting results. Again, as you grow and you learn, you'll be able to be more fluid and flexible. Yes, you'll be able to do multiple things at once. That comes with time. And again, this message right now that I'm speaking is more so for maybe newer people on the path. I'm not talking about if you've been on the path and you got experience and maybe you're an elder, not in the sense of physical age, but you're an elder in the sense of wisdom and knowledge. I'm not talking to those individuals, he or she. There are plenty of people on this path that have the ability to do that. But I'm more so talking about and addressing a lot of emails I get. And it's very obvious by the tone of the emails and the way they're written. These are more so newer people on the path, I'm going to say. I'm not going to say maybe all brand spanking new, but maybe 6 months to a year, year and a half, 2 years. Those are the most toughest part. I'm telling you, look, I've talked about this many times before. When you make that initial commitment to say, I'm going to be on this path, I'm making a commitment because you've encountered some knowledge and wisdom that has awakened you, it has sparked you, and you make that intent to change your life and go a different direction, that's when the shit really hits the fan. It becomes tough. And I've mentioned this before. I get a lot of emails from people on the beginning stages of their path. They always use the term lonely and isolated. And I tell them, stop and think about what you just said for a moment. That's a beautiful thing. Because that's confirmation that you are, quote unquote, tapping into what we call that isolated consciousness of set. The spirit and the soul starts to recognize it needs to separate itself from certain things. And that could be people, places, things, habits, methodologies. That's a good thing. And I can tell you this, people, you're going to find out on this path as you go through years, you're constantly cycling your personal circle. I can't even tell you in the last 10, 15 years, I could tell you this. I don't talk to anybody I talked to probably 5 years ago, or maybe even less. You'll find on this path your cycles. You go through different cycles of change. People will come and go. You will keep the core people around you, but you will see if you are doing the work accordingly, what needs to just peel away from you, be it people, place, or things, spiritual things, mental things, emotional things, physical attachments, all that shit will start to fade to the wayside. That feeling of isolation, which some people kind of connect with loneliness in the beginning, it can be a very lonely path. And it is. You remember, there's that old saying, you are by your lonesome, right? And you are. This is a very lonely but yet fulfilling path. Lonely in the sense, because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you don't have friends, you don't have social circles, you don't have enjoyment. Let me make that clear as I'm saying what I'm saying so you're not getting confused. But even though you still might have that, but when you're alone with your thoughts, you're in your chamber or doing your meditation, when you really start tapping into the true self, your personal daemon, you start to really realize it's really just fucking you. That's a reality. You know, even though you might have the physical things around you, family, friends, siblings, etc., when you really start to tap into your real thoughts, the real you, your personal daemon, your real emotions that really comprise who you really are, you start to really understand, really at the end of the fucking day, it really is just me. You understand? It's always been, but I can get sidetracked and disillusioned by all that external bullshit. So that's where those people that send those emails because they always use that word. It's very lonely, right? I had one person describe to me at some moments they feel like being around a large group of people, and then shortly after that they don't want to be around nobody. The reason why that is because you are changing, you're evolving, your energy is changing. I've found, you'll find, be it people or even things you used to do regularly, you start to despise them. Like you don't even want to do them no more. You're not motivated. Certain people that you might have had around you for years, you start seeing them for who and what they are, and you start gravitating away from them. And I know I dealt with that in certain circles I used to run with years ago. And until I completely cut those circles off completely, I mean completely shut them down, and stop even communicating with certain individuals in them circles, that's when things actually started to change. Because I've mentioned this, you are the company you keep. Keep that in mind. You are the company you keep. If you hang around with derelicts and lowlives and unsuccessful people, even though you may think in your mind you're none of the mentioned above, it don't matter. You hang around with them long enough, you will become a derelict, a bum, unsuccessful person, etc. That's a reality that you can't get around. I know a lot of people in that boat. They'll go, oh, not me, not me. You are the company you keep, because you're going to be a reflection of that. Your energy that you carry is going to be a reflection of that. And sometimes it starts to affect you and you're not conscious of it. So, to avoid being the jack of all trades, master of nothing, I'll keep saying this, and I say it all the time. Start looking at yourself. Start making a checklist of things you do good, things you don't do good. Be real with yourself and say to yourself, what are some of your habits or the things you do that are causing problems and obstructions in your life? It could be poor financial decisions. It could be constantly picking, if you're a man, you're always just looking at the woman for looks and you're mesmerized by the big ass and titties, but she's dumb as rocks up top. Vice, same thing if you're a female. Stop looking because he's got nice hair and eyes and look how muscular he is. He could be dumb as fucking rocks, and then you produce dumbass children. That's just the reality. So sometimes maybe you constantly have this repetitive habit of choosing the wrong significant other, mate, partner, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Could be that. Maybe you suck with money and you just don't want to admit it. You're an impulse buyer. You can't manage money. Look, I'm not talking about just saving, because sometimes people can get fanatical with saving and they save, and they still neglect other things and shit gets chaotic. Maybe you suck with money, period. You don't know how to facilitate it. You don't know how to manage it. You don't know how to utilize it. Some people don't know how money makes money. That's another problem in people's lives. Maybe it's that you're fucking suffering from or you're struggling with, right? Maybe your temper sucks ass. You have no control over your emotions and your personal temper, but you always find some justification to pretend like you don't. You understand? I mean, I could go on. We could be here for hours talking about that. This is what this path to self-mastery is about. Starting in those areas. This reality. See, some people think it's just gloom and doom and all this dark stuff and skulls and invocate, and all that stuff is part of it. I keep saying that shit over and over. But bottom line is, it's really about doing some deep internal work on yourself. Being real with yourself. Okay? And the only person that knows self is self. Okay? Yeah, other people can look at you and assess you, no doubt, right? But you know deep down within yourself what you do that's fucked up and what you do that's not fucked up. Let's keep it real. We're all adults. All right? This is a fact. And if we're mature adults, male and female, we need to act responsibly like mature adults and females. And step one is take responsibility for your actions, where you are right now in your life, regardless of what it is. And you might say to yourself, look, there are some people, don't get me wrong, they're dealt some, at the moment, some uncontrollable circumstances they may not have been able to handle at the moment, but they still have the ability to rectify it and get out of it. So I know it's a case-by-case basis and scenario, but we have to be responsible for our actions. Step one is being responsible. We can't blame nobody for shit. And we don't give nobody credit for our successes. So it's a twofold sword. All right? But once you accept that reality that it's just you, but see, don't just say it with the tongue. Really understand it and put it into perspective. That's why I was just saying a couple of minutes ago, at the end of the day, you start to realize, holy shit, it's really just me. And it could be a lonely path if you don't understand it. And it is a lonely path, but that's a good thing. Because that means you're in that state of isolation, right? You're starting to tap into what we call Khepera, or awareness, right? The self-realization of who and what you really are. Not who you think you are, not who you want people to see you as, but who you really fucking are. That's all that matters. Regardless. And you gotta be careful not to fall for your own hype. That's that motherfucker I was talking about earlier when we were young and in school, standing in circles, talking about all the pussy that he gets. Because that's the image he was trying to portray to everybody else in the group. How he gets all this pussy, how every female wants to give him some ass. I can guarantee you that's a motherfucker that jerks his dick off all the time and don't get no pussy. Trust me when I tell you. I found that with male and female. If all you gotta do is talk sex this and sex that, ask this, I get so much pussy this and that, you don't get no pussy. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you. That's all talk. It's all game. We all knew growing up with the real dudes here and there, we might have had one boy here and there. We talked in private about shit we did. But I know when I got in group circles, I ain't never group circles or in front of a lot of people. And those that know, you don't ever hear me talk about that in group circles when I was a kid then and now, because I knew how to keep my shit private. I'm not talking about when you had we all had a main boy or a small group of 2 or 3 of us where we were boys, we were tight. So yeah, we might have shared personal things in that little niche, but I would never get in wide public circles. I would never even come on here and talk about a lot of that shit openly, because you just don't, in my opinion, it's just my opinion. You can come on here and talk about all the pussy you get or don't get. I couldn't give a shit personally, but that's my choice. That's my stance. I don't fucking bother with that. It's like that old saying, real gangsters or bad boys move in silence, right? We hear that term all the time. So that's another problem people got with this social media platform shit. They put too much of their personal business out in the ethers, right? They talk too much shit, or they get on these channels and they argue, and it's drama and it's gossip, and they shoot videos. This one's attacking this one's going off on this one, and you make yourself look like a complete jackass. You should have common sense to know there's certain things you could put out there publicly, there's certain things you don't. Just like I think it's tacky when somebody, they'll put an email and block out the names of, how they did this and they got results. I don't even think you should be exposing that on any level. That's private. That's confidential. I don't think you should be talking about that stuff. But everybody's got their own perception. And I'm not saying that. Look, don't get that confused with morals. There's morals, there's religious and society morals, then there's common fucking sense morals. I'm talking about common fucking sense morals. If I go to you and we're talking and we're building and we know each other and we both made an agreement to keep that shit there, that's just common motherfucking sense. All right, it ain't got nothing to do with morals and this and that, because back in the day, the way I grew up, your word was your bond, and if you didn't keep your word, you got your ass beat. That's just how it was. I'm talking about that type of shit. Common sense type shit. Unfortunately, some motherfuckers don't got it. We got it. Look, all of these distractions, all of these, don't get caught up in none of that shit, number one. Number two, don't be all scatterbrained and all over the fucking place. This is why you don't get nothing done and you don't get no results. So, long story short, without veering off into too many different areas, I don't want to be doing this too long. I just wanted to address the follow-up to that last video. I did receive about 6-7 emails specifically on that video, and I'm glad some people really took that information personally, and some of the responses I got in the emails that they gauged it to themselves as far as I got past that I need to clear. We all do. And that's why I said in the last video, remember, when you're doing road clearing or path clearing work, you don't just do it when you got a problem. That's the problem. Some people will they got money problems, so they work on their financial path. Some people got physical problems or maybe an ailment or an illness. Then all of a sudden they want to do some road clearing work for physical health. Or it might be a personal relationship or significant other. If you're look again, I got to use a kindergarten metaphor. If you own a car, what do you got to do on a car regularly to keep it operating and running? Maintenance. You need to change the oil, transmission fluid, rotate the tires. Sometimes you got to change it. You need to get it tuned. That's just common sense to what? To keep the car running smoothly and flowing, right? Even if you got a brand new car, you got to take it in for service so they can do the same similar things. Well, use that metaphor to yourself. If you're not doing the maintenance, quote unquote, on your Magic, especially when it comes to path clearing work, you should constantly be doing consistent stuff to keep those paths and that energy flowing freely. It's that simple. Even though your marriage or your relationship is going smooth, don't mean you can't keep putting the energy out there to keep that path clear. Same thing with finances. I see that shit all the time. People will do money magic and they'll do financial work to clear their path, and they get some results right away. They get a little bit of a chunk of money, and then they just fucking stop. And then when that's done and runs out, shit just crashes again. If they would have stayed on it consistently, okay, and there's money magic, and for those, look, and for those that have done work with me in that area, and you know there's a couple of rituals I've given you, and if you stay on the one I tell you consistently that you've gotten in a consultation, it's very simple. And I show you how after you do the initial one, how you continue to stay on it and charge up that ritual to keep, quote unquote, that energy open and fluctuating. Because that's probably one area of magic and spiritual work you must stay on constantly. Why? Because you're constantly paying bills. Money's coming in, money's coming out. How do you keep the flow consistent? See, I always tell people, work your magic in the areas of being consistent. If you are consistent in your thought and your actions and how you practice your magic, I will guarantee you anything, you will get fucking results on a regular basis. If you're not getting results, trust me when I tell you, I guarantee, evaluate how consistent you are at what you do. And 9 out of 10 times you're going to go, shit, you know what? I'm really not consistent. I only did that 2, 3, maybe 4 times. Oh, I only did this once or twice. Or I did this once or twice and I got results, but then I stopped. Remember, we always talk about that chaos coming over the horizon. Chaos will find its way back to you. But the question is, are you ready to deal with it when it comes? All right? I'm going to leave it there. So hopefully this helped as a follow-up to the last video. And as I said before, I'm going to do a lot of these videos in between. I like the concept of addressing emails, just focusing on a specific topic for a short period of time, and to give you guys stuff to marinate on, in between the live feeds. But reminder, Tuesday night, if you have or have not seen it, I did post it on my YouTube page. I will be doing the second and final part to the occult breakdown of the 5% nation teachings of the gods and earths. We will do the 1 to 40, the actual and solar facts, and we will break down the universal flag. And you will now have an occult understanding of those degrees. And as I said before, even though I, to this day, ain't a full-fledged member of any particular 5% regional camp or whatever gathering place or group or body, I do still stay in touch with many gods. I still have many friends that are, but they know my position and stance, and I still dialogue, but I apply the degrees and the 120 in my own practical method. Not quite the same. There are some similarities. Some stuff, as I said before, in them degrees, they don't even need to be touched. You understand? It speaks for itself, but there are some stuff. And if you watch the last video, what we did up until this point, we did the student enrollment, the 1 to 10. We did the Muslim lesson C, which is the 1 to 36. We did the 1 to 14, the lost and found. There are some historical inaccuracies in there, and there are some things that are not factual. You can't take them literal. You have to understand what they symbolize and how you can apply it to yourself. We will do that with the 1 to 40 coming up on Tuesday night, and I'm going to go in hard on the universal flag, which we'll discuss how it's looked at on the surface, but there's a lot of hidden occult meanings in that flag when you look at it. We're going to build on that. And then obviously the actual facts and the solar facts. And that'll give you a complete understanding of the 120. I know some of you have suggested topics and areas where we were influenced and how we grew up. A lot of us came up 5%ers, Muslims, etc. So we can start going into their doctrine and their dogma, but look at it from an occult perspective. Because look, you can do that with the Bible too. It's just, you just got to see the hidden messages in there. I didn't get into the Luciferian thing, but one thing I want to throw out there back about that in reference to not getting caught up being a jack of all trades, master of nothing. Luciferianism, and this is how I teach it. Don't get caught up in what you might know as mainstream, that Luciferianism or Luciferianism is this religious, structured spiritual system. In some circles, how it's applied, yes, it is. Individuals that do that. I'm trying to get you to see more focus on the concept of Luciferianism and what it represents. Because if you understand that and take on that mind state, you'll be able, that's how you'll be able to incorporate all these different spiritual systems. If you understand the mind state, and again, you can go back to 11 points of power of Luciferianism. I've talked about that. I did videos on it. If you use that approach mentally, you will see how that can filter out into all your work and your magic. I always am teaching Luciferianism as the concept of it, the mind state, and how that can filter into all your other work. So when you hear me say that, and if somebody needs a description, if to somebody, well, Luciferianism will be a great term to describe what this path embodies. Not the actual, what you might know on the surface, but what the concept is and what it represents. So really go back and look into the 11 points of power. That should give you some help. Because what does it talk about? Being a god, self-deification, not conforming. You get it. It goes on and on and on and on. So if you understand that, what it is to be a god or a goddess and be on this path, that's what it engulfs. It's quite simple. But anyway, hope this helped, and we will see everybody Tuesday evening. Peace.